So as Eric mentioned, I'll be talking about our Intuiflow for NetSuite product today, and just talking a little bit about some of the key features, some of the differences with the enterprise product, and how we see the landscape evolving for our NetSuite customers going forward. So just starting with some context in terms of how we see our customers evolving, and how they can choose between our different product offerings, whether they want to continue with NetSuite or expand and potentially switch over to the enterprise product while still using NetSuite as their ERP. And then on the NetSuite product itself, I'll highlight some of the tools such as the Intuiflow Record Details, the part maintenance aspect of it, how you can create orders. I'll also highlight the S&OP functionality within the NetSuite platform, and then again end with the possibilities as it relates to integrating NetSuite to the standalone product. So as Eric mentioned, we have been seeing our NetSuite customers sort of emerge from this end of the spectrum towards the mid-market and enterprise space. Our NetSuite product has been around for quite a few years, and we have a significant customer base. And over time, we've seen that those customers and their requirements are becoming more and more complex, right? So initially, we had customers who had maybe just a few locations and a couple of end users. With time, the requirements are becoming more and more complex. So, they have more locations, more sort of requests, more settings they need. So the point we're trying to emphasize here, right, is that we have flexibility for our NetSuite customers in terms of the Intuiflow product offering they want to choose, right? So they can definitely continue with the existing NetSuite platform, which is embedded within the NetSuite environment. So there's no need for an integration. That's a plus point on that side. But as they make their way to sort of this mid-market range, right, and they have a need for more functionality, more features, that's perhaps when the standalone product can come into play, right? So the enterprise version that offers just a little bit more in terms of functionality. So just wanted to highlight some of the key features of the Intuiflow platform in NetSuite, which again is embedded within NetSuite as an ERP. You just have to install the Intuiflow bundle, and like I said, there's no integration, so that is definitely a plus point we like to highlight. And a lot of there are differences between the two platforms, right, between Intuiflow for NetSuite and the enterprise version, but a lot of the foundational elements are the same. So the core sort of concepts derive from the same methodology. The order creation process and the logic is the same, right? So in terms of look and feel, this may feel a bit different, but the foundational elements are very closely aligned. So what we're looking at here is a item FBA set up at the plant location, and this is the Intuiflow record for it. And on the left-hand side over here, you can see the buffer sizing tab. So this is showing you the current snapshot of the buffer, and you're also able to see the net flow and the current on-hand position. So again, very easy to visually see if you need to order and how much if you are in the yellow or red zones, right? And then on the right-hand side, you can see a historical view, right? So the left-hand side is the current snapshot, and the right-hand side, the analytics view. You can look at the historical performance of that buffer, right? So you can use this feature here to sort of drag in and adjust the time frame as needed. But this is a great way to see how the item is trended, whether the usage for the item is trending upwards or downwards. And then you can also see from the net flow pattern whether the planner in charge of the item has been conforming to the order recommendations or not. Then we have a series of tabs here at the bottom that highlight some key information about the item. So starting with buffer details. So this is kind of similar to the part properties tab at the enterprise version, where you can see key data points such as the usage of the item. So here we have a couple of different options. We have a manual daily usage option, an actual ADU, which is based on your historical consumption, and then a forecasted daily usage option as well. And then you can see you can select here which of the three methods you want to use. And we have a blend option as well, which is a 50-50 split between the ADU and FDU options. And then you can also see any adjustment factors that may have been applied to an item. And on the supply side, you can see the replenishment type, the lead time, and decouple lead time of the item. And then any data points relating to the ordering policy, meaning the MOQ or the max and multiple. Then on the part activity, this is where you'll see the running balance for the item. So starting with the inventory, then you can see any transactions affecting the running balance from a demand and supply perspective. Again, similar in logic to how it works in the enterprise version, where we have our demand in red, supply in blue, and then any spikes such as this transfer order over here that I'm highlighting, any spikes are highlighted in or bolded, right, to just make you aware of them so that those spikes are accounted for. It gives you the visibility and you don't stock out on a buffered item, right? And that visibility is also provided here on the right-hand side in terms of the order spike threshold and the order spike horizon. So for this item, we're seeing a order spike threshold of 37, and that means it's by default set to 50% of the red zone, right? So if any demand is in the future is greater than that threshold, that will be qualified as a spike. Hence, this transfer order meeting that criteria. And we do have flexibility here at the buffer profile level. You can alter your order spike threshold as well as your order spike horizon if needed. Okay, moving on to the BOM tab here. So the Intuiflow for NetSuite version will read in the active bill of material from the NetSuite record. So this will allow you to see all the components, their lead times, and it also provides visibility into their on-hand levels here in this column. So it just gives you some more visibility from that aspect as well. And then you can see the individual lead times and then the Intuiflow lead time for the finished good, right? So in this case, we can see here from the legend, you can see this symbol represents the longest unbuffered leg. That's BPA over here, which has a lead time of 25 days. So that's being factored into the FPA lead time. So it's saying it takes me 25 days to get BPA and then an additional 10 days to make FPA, hence the 35 here. The next tab here I want to highlight is the network view. So this gives you visibility into which other locations you have this item at, right? So again, everything is item location specific. And in this case, you can see that you have the item at a multitude of locations, right? So you have it at warehouse 1, region 4, region 2, so on and so forth. And for each item location combination, you can see the specific net flow elements as well as the overall net flow, right? So you can see at the different locations what the on-hand is, where you have supply coming in, what the usage is at that location. So this could be useful when, for example, if you typically buy an item from a vendor, but you have a order drop that is dropped in, and you can't wait 90 days to order from a vendor. In this case, you may say, okay, where else in my network do I have this inventory that I can pull from? So if you have it at another warehouse that's a 7-day lead time, shorter than it would be to order from a vendor, you can use this tab to see where you may have on hand and where you can pull from within your network. The next tab here is the buffer calculation tab. So this shows you the size of each zone, right? So on the buffer details tab, we saw the current snapshot of the buffer. This provides details into how each of those zones is calculated. So you can see here how the green, yellow, and red zones are all calculated. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the current net flow, right? So this will show you your current inventory, supply, and demand. And then it also highlights what your expected average inventory should be, right? So that's your red zone plus half of green. And then lastly, you can see the recommended order calculation here. So if your net flow is in the yellow or red, it will basically show you that calculation to get your net flow back up to the top of green. So this tab is really helpful when we're going through data validation and modeling exercises to make sure that the correct transactions are being captured. And from a modeling perspective, this is really helpful. If you're looking at a key item, a high running item, you can look at the expected average inventory as a quick check to make sure that the system is recommending logical target inventory amounts. Okay, then moving on, I want to highlight some of the part maintenance tools in the Intuiflow for NetSuite version. So this first one is called the replenishment method audit. So you can use this to guide you in terms of the item setup as it relates to an item being buffered or non-buffered, right? So you can input your criteria over here in terms of the demand pulses. Again, demand pulse is a day of demand, right? And you can specify your date range here. So you can say, I want to look back over the last year and set 10 as my criteria for buffering, right? 10 demand pulses as my criteria for buffering. And you can segment it further by replenishment type, vendor, location. So that's one use case. You could also use it to see which items you may have currently buffered that are not experiencing any demand, and thus you may want to make some corrective action and take some corrective action and say it's buffered, but I'm not seeing any movement on the item. I don't need to hold it on the shelves year round. So I may want to switch it to a non-buffered approach, right? So in this case, we can see I've input this is my criteria, right? 10 demand pulses over the last year. The current replenishment method is buffered. So in this case, it's showing me all these items that are buffered, but they have not had any demand pulses, thus no demand quantity either, right? So the recommended replenishment method from Intuiflow standpoint is non-buffered. And if these recommendations make sense, you can very quickly check these boxes next to the item, right, and accept those changes. Once you submit it, it triggers a background script, and the replenishment method for the items is updated accordingly. The next tool I want to highlight here is Smart Buffer Profiler. So slightly different in terms of look and feel from the enterprise version. But essentially here, what you can see is once you have your items buffered, it will show you any recommended profile changes based on the lead time and variability of the items, right? So you can see here that you're looking at a total number of 31 changes, right? And you can see the impact at an aggregate level to the inventory based in units and in dollars, right? And then this report below shows the item level view. So it's showing you the items and their current buffer profile in red here, and then the recommended profile based on any changes to the attributes that go into the buffer profile. And then at the item level, you can see what the expected average inventory or your target inventory is, and what the new target inventory would be if you were to accept that change based on the recommended profile, right? And so based on that delta, you can also see the impact inventory in units and dollars here at the item level. So just like the replenishment method audit, you can use this tool to make sure that the system is up to date in terms of the right buffer profiles applied to the items. Typically, we recommend sort of a monthly process where you're looking at both these tools in conjunction and making sure from a data hygiene and item accuracy standpoint that the correct replenishment method is applied. And then if your items are buffered, you want to make sure that the buffer profile is correct, right? And so again, you can click this checkbox here next to each item, or you can click the Mark All button and then submit the changes here again as a background script and updates the buffer profiles based on the SBP recommendations. The last part maintenance tool I want to highlight is this Intuiflow Record Issues report. So this is highlighting item master data issues from two perspectives. One is from the master data in NetSuite, and the second is Intuiflow specific data. So in this case, in the NetSuite product, essentially, we're reading in information, the Intuiflow record is reading in information from the NetSuite item record. So if there's any issue with the master data in NetSuite, that will impact the Intuiflow record, right? So if the item is inactive in NetSuite, that will also lead to problems with the Intuiflow record. So this report is meant to highlight that and help you with overall system or data maintenance. So you can see here, just highlighting some examples over here, that for this item, the item is inactive itself in NetSuite. So because of that, the Intuiflow record won't update. And then similarly, if the location is inactive or the vendor is inactive, that will stop the Intuiflow record from updating as well. So this gives you visibility into what data issues you may have and what corrective actions you need to take. In terms of order creation, in the Intuiflow for NetSuite version, we have a screen called the Accept Recommended Orders page. It is similar to the Workbench, but in this case, it's a slightly different screen where you can create your orders from en masse. But the concept is very similar, right? Where we have this page set up to be sorted by priority and net flow percentage, right? So again, for planners, it's very easy to identify which items they need to focus on a day-to-day basis. You can also filter here by location, planner, replenishment type, and vendor, right? So that way you can drill down to the relevant items. You can also search by item over here. And the ordering process is pretty seamless. You can click these checkboxes here next to the item, and then click the Generate Orders button. As you check these boxes, you'll notice that the order quantity populates with the recommended order, right? But that's not fixed, it's not set in stone. So if for some reason you want to modify that order quantity, you can do so, right? So in this example that I'm highlighting here, for this item, the recommended order was 962, but I bumped that up to 1,000. Okay. Also on the Accept Recommended Orders page, we have a couple of tabs that you can expand to get some insight into the order you're about to place. So the first one is called Order Details. You can click this arrow here to expand and collapse it. So this will show you, as you're about to place your orders over here based on the items you selected, it will show you the order details in terms of the part count, order count, and the order value, right? And it segments it by the 3 different order types. So you have purchase orders, work orders, and transfer orders. And as you make your selections here, this section dynamically updates. So from a visibility perspective, it gives you an insight into the count and order value that you're about to create. And then the next one here is group planning. So another tab you can expand or collapse by clicking this arrow. And this will show you from a sort of logistical point of view what your pallet and truck count, for example, is, right? So these are free form fields. Just in this demo data, I've set it up using pallets, trucks, and containers, right? But in your settings, you can define what these metrics are. And then you have to basically, we have a couple of group planning fields on the Intuiflow record itself where you specify those conversions. And then based on that, when you're about to create an order, right, based on these order quantities, this will dynamically populate to give you a sense of how many pallets worth you're about to order, for example. Any questions so far before I go on to S&OP? Okay. So we do have, in addition to the materials planning side, we do have the S&OP module in NetSuite as well, where you can essentially use either a forecast or historical demand to project your buffers forward, right? So again, foundationally very similar to the S&OP module in the enterprise version. So these are the S&OP settings where, again, you can select a forecast or your historical demand, right, in terms of your input. And then you can select your projection horizon over here. And then you also have the ability to include your current inventory and supply if you want to in the simulations. No, it's one or the other, but you can extract your historicals and manipulate them. So a lot of customers will take their historicals and apply some sort of percentage to that and use that as a forecast that they feed into the system again. Okay, on the S&OP side, we have some reports as well that show the simulated on-hand and target inventory levels throughout the simulation period. So that is the top section of this report over here. You can see the dollar value attached to those trend lines. And then at the bottom here, this is where you can see the S&OP buffer trend, right? So just like the regular buffer trend, this is showing you the distribution of items across priorities. So if you're seeing a lot of over top of green or a lot of items in red, you can drill down from there and see what may be causing that, right? So starting with sort of a high level, macro level analysis, and then drilling down from there to see what items may be contributing to that. The next report I want to highlight here is the S&OP day stocked out report. So in this case, it's automatically sorted by the day stocked out column. So this gives you visibility into items that had the highest number of issues during the simulation period, right? So if we have a buffered item, ideally we don't want it stocking out, right? But if that does occur, this gives us visibility into that and allows us to take some corrective actions. So as you can see from here, in the simulation period, it's showing that for this item, it's stocked out for 367 days. And you can see the attribute or transactions affecting that item, right? So in terms of the number of days of demand and the number of supply orders, simulated supply orders you would have generated. So from here, you can also drill down to the item level, right? So this gives you visibility overall, sorted by items that have the highest number of issues. And then you can click the view button here next to an item to drill down into item level specifics. So in this example here, we can see I'm back on the Intuiflow record, right? So we went through some of these tabs earlier. In this case, now you can see also we have the two tabs called S&OP and S&OP tables. In this first one, you can see that I have a brief stockout period over here, right? So you can see that equates to about 15 days of stockout. Generally, a pretty healthy buffer, but towards the end, running into some issues here during the simulation, right? So this can be a great way to assess your item setup and your model configuration, right? You can run different scenarios and test the resiliency of your buffers to see if you're having any exposures during the simulation period. So I can couple this visibility with the item level simulation capability to basically see what I need to do to avoid that scenario, right? So in this case, I've opened up the zone adjustment factors section, and I've put in an adjustment of 25 units for this period so that I can avoid that stock out, right? And then I can just run the simulation at the item level without running the entire S&OP simulation for all my items to just see the impact that this adjustment factor would have on this particular item. So based on that adjustment, you can see now that I've rerun the simulation for this item, and I'm no longer stocking out here towards the end of the simulation period like I was previously, right? And just highlighting again the days stocked out, so that no longer is showing a value, right? Which is a good sign. So if I'm happy with the update, if I'm happy with the adjustment I made, I can click update into a flow record from here, right? Which saves me a step. This flows back to the operational level, which means I don't have to go back to the Intuiflow record and then create the adjustment factor again, right? You can see its impact in the simulation, and if it has the desired result, you can simply click update from here. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a couple of options in terms of versions of Intuiflow, right? So with some customers, we found that even though they're using NetSuite as their ERP, some of the functionality they were looking for aligned more closely with our enterprise version. So what we're trying to what we're trying to emphasize here is that we have flexibility for our NetSuite customer base, right? If they want to continue with the NetSuite Intuiflow for NetSuite platform, great. They can also explore the Intuiflow enterprise version, right? So they have that flexibility when choosing from our product offerings. And if you are using NetSuite as your ERP and want to explore the enterprise version, basically we would have to develop an interface between the two, right? So that we can get this daily sync of your key data that would allow you to plan inside Intuiflow, right? And then those pending orders are sent back to NetSuite and then round trip back to Intuiflow on the next interface run. So we have a couple of customers that are using this. So we have a where they're using NetSuite as their ERP and using the enterprise version of our product. So we have a very robust integration that we've built, and we can leverage that going forward as well if there's interest in that. And then just wanted to highlight the sort of comparison of the functionality. As I mentioned, a lot of the foundational elements are the same, right? So just wanted to sort of compare and contrast the Intuiflow for NetSuite version with the enterprise product. So you'll see a lot of similarities between the two, right? In terms of starting at a modular level, you can see that we have materials planning, S&OP, and embedded reporting across both platforms, right? And there are some differences, right, in terms of functionality, where on the materials planning side, in the enterprise version, we have autopilot now and an expanded breadth of calendars and editors that we don't have at the moment on the NetSuite side, right? But for the most part, a lot of similarities between the two as it relates to these three modules. The difference I'd like to highlight here is that in the enterprise version, we have two newer modules, right? One is scheduling and execution. This is the module that Miles presented yesterday. And then demand planning is the area of the software that VNA went over this morning. So I just wanted to highlight, what the similarities are and where there may be some differences between the two platforms, just so you have an idea if you are evaluating NetSuite and the Intuiflow product offerings, just so that you're aware of what the differences are between the two. So demand planning is one potential area where we're getting a lot of questions from NetSuite prospects and customers in terms of how they can leverage that. So as I mentioned, we don't have this built into the NetSuite version at the moment, but we can definitely get around that, right? So through CSV transfers, we can basically set up a site on the standalone version where you can leverage demand planning while using NetSuite, right? So I think we have a sort of similar use case with autopilot, where we can make sure that if you want to continue with the NetSuite version, you can definitely get the benefit from this additional functionality that's available on the enterprise side as well now. Okay, so that's all from my side for today. I'll open the floor up to questions.
Questions for Salaar? It's interesting because I think the NetSuite platform itself has grown dramatically. That company was growing at about 35 to 40% per year when it was in the public market. And then Ellison brought it back inside of Oracle about 2009, I think. So we don't have as much visibility, but they're growing at an exceptional rate. They have a very good platform. If you're interested in an ERP migration somewhere down the road, it might be an interesting option for you. We also have a similar partnership with NextWorld, which is another new ERP founded by the McVaney family, who had built JD Edwards, sold it to Oracle, waited out the non-compete terms, and then started with a very different vision for how to build an ERP platform with a low-code / no-code kind of development environment, making it a lot more, I think the word Mark Good uses, who's their CEO, composable, where you can make it align to your business needs in a unique way. And they built integrations into Intuiflow as part of their strategy to address the deep supply chain needs for their client base. Instead of building all that functionality themselves, they chose us, which I'm very privileged to earn their respect in that way. And we're starting to see a good bit of market activity now as they're really starting to get into the market as well. So especially for the small, medium business clients, you may have some other options out there. We also have established integrations for Dynamics F&O and Dynamics Business Central.